Hey Calvary kids, I hope that y'all are having a great week as July is almost over, which is crazy. We're going to keep looking at the life of Jesus as told through the Gospels, the first 4 books of the New Testament. So last week, if you remember, we learned about how Jesus called his first disciples and how Jesus didn't necessarily pick the people that we would have expected him to pick. He didn't necessarily pick the wealthiest or the smartest or the cleanest or the most popular people. Instead, he just picked some ordinary guys like fishermen, tax collectors, and more. Well, this week, we're going to learn about some of the first miracles that Jesus did as he walked around here on earth helping people. So pause and as a family, turn to Mark 1:21. Throughout Jesus' time on earth, he did many miracles. Miracles are when Jesus does something that only the Son of God could do. And Jesus does miracles to demonstrate that he is the Son of God and to help people believe that truth about him. And so when Jesus does his first miracles, he's actually in the region of Galilee. So not quite a country, but bigger than a city, kind of the region of Galilee. And the first miracle he does is actually at Capernaum. And it's driving out an unclean spirit from a man. So pause and as a family, see if you can figure out what Jesus was doing before the man with the unclean spirit approached him. And to find the answer with that, check verse 21. Jesus was in Capernaum teaching people in the synagogue. And the synagogue would have been kind of like the equivalent of a church, but like a Jewish church. So Jesus was teaching in the synagogue when the man with an unclean spirit cries out and says, "I know who you are. You are the Son of the Most High. Have you come to destroy us?" And Jesus responds by commanding the unclean spirit to come out of the man, and the unclean spirit does just that. So pause it as a family, see if you can figure out how the people respond after Jesus does this. And the answer to that's in verses 27 and 28. The people were amazed by both his teaching and the power he had demonstrated by casting out the unclean spirit from the man. And news about Jesus began to spread around the whole region of Galilee. Now, Peter and Andrew's family actually lived in the city of Capernaum. And Jesus goes to their house along with James and John. And someone the disciples knew was sick. So pause it as a family, see if you can figure out what person the disciples knew who was sick. And the answer to that is in verse 30. Peter's mother-in-law, so the mother of Peter's wife, had a fever and was sick in bed. So Jesus went up to see her, takes her by the hand and helps her up. And she's immediately healed from this sickness. In fact, she even gets up and starts to serve Jesus and the disciples. And so people then begin bringing sick people they know, people who have unclean spirits, and they're bringing them to Peter's house so that Jesus can heal them. So Jesus then does something next that's maybe a little surprising. So see if you can figure out what that is. And the answer to this is in verse 35. Even Jesus, the Son of God, knew the importance of being able to spend some private time in prayer to God. So Jesus gets up early in the morning and does this, and then the disciples come and find him and say, "Hey, everyone's been looking for you." And Jesus says, "Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go through the whole region of Galilee, preaching there as well, not just in this city." So they do this, and a man with leprosy approaches Jesus. Now, leprosy was a really, really nasty disease. So what leprosy does is it kind of eats away at your body, and you actually start to begin to lose, your fingers might come off and things like that. So it's this nasty disease, and it's pretty contagious. So once you have leprosy, not only are you suffering from this awful disease, but you're kind of kicked out of the town, kicked out of being around people because people don't want to catch it. So being a leper, someone with leprosy, would have been a really, really hard life. So this man approaches Jesus and says, "If you're willing, make me clean." Now notice, he didn't say, "If you are able, make me clean." He said, "If you are willing," which shows that the man believed Jesus could do it. It was just a matter of he wanted to know if Jesus was willing to do it. So pause and as a family see if you can figure out what Jesus does or how Jesus responds. And the answer to that is in verses 41 and 42. Jesus had compassion on the man and told the man that he was willing to heal him of his leprosy. So he takes the man by the hand and heals him, and the man's leprosy is instantly gone. So what does this have to do with us? Well, back in the New Testament, Jesus did miracles for two reasons. One, to demonstrate that he truly was the Son of God, and two, to help people believe that was true about him, that he was the Son of God, to help people's faith. Now, since Jesus is in heaven and not still walking around on earth, we don't really see Jesus walking around doing miracles today. So, my question for you all to talk about as a family is, how does God reveal himself to us today? So pause and as a family, discuss that question. There are two big ways that God reveals himself to us. One of the ways, and probably the best way, is through his word, the Bible. The Bible tells us everything we need to know about God. So whenever we have a question about who God is, what he's like, what he's doing, what he thinks we should do, the best place to turn is to the Bible. But another way that God can reveal himself to us is through his creation. What that looks like is sometimes we see things in creation that can teach us something about what God is like. So for example, maybe we see a beautiful sunset and it can remind us that God is a God of beauty and loves beautiful things. Or maybe we see all of the amazing animals God created that are so different, and like if you look at the platypus, kind of funny looking, that God is a very creative God. Or you think about how complicated our bodies are. Like you think about how we have like a defense system against germs just built into our bodies, or how different we all look. And we see that God has created this complex thing like us, and that he's this crazy, wise, and intelligent God. So, my challenge for you this week is to learn something new about God. So, what that looks like, for example, is maybe you've heard people say God is love, but you're not really sure how you know that. So maybe find some Bible verses that talk about God being love or how God is loving. Or maybe as you are out and about this week, you'll see something in creation that reminds you of God. Maybe write that down or draw a picture of it to remind you. So until next week, Calvary Kids, see ya.